You're watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the January 19th meeting of the Michigan City Board of Cemetery Trustees. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Cemetery Trustees to order this 19th day of January 2023. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Bernadette Benke. Present. Stephen Janis.
Here.
Renee Bauer.
Here.
Mary Ann Milzarek. Here. Paul. Davis Bush.
Yes.
Virginia Keating.
Here.
Okay. We have one.
Yes. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the December 8th, 2022 meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
I'd move we approve.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The first order of business today is the election of officers. We have to elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary for the year 2023. Do I have a nomination for president?
I nominate Virginia.
Second.
Then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And thank you very much for your confidence. I hope that's why you chose. The next is the nomination for vice president.
I'm going to nominate Davis Bush.
Is it acceptable?
Accepted.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Davis.
Thank you.
The next item is the nomination for secretary.
I'll make a motion to nominate Bunny.
Okay. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next is the financial reports. We'll start with Horizon Bank, please.
Yes, well, Happy New Year. So we made quarterly distributions on January 10 of this year. Greenwood paid $6,435.93. Swan Lake, $3,533.50. The Extension Fund paid $4,527.26, or $2,263.63 each for Swan Lake and Greenwood. Starting at the top of your summary page with the permanent maintenance Greenwood account, it was up 0.24% for the month and 1.73% year-to-date. The next account, the permanent maintenance Swan Lake account, was up 0.2% for the month and 1.55% year-to-date. The Extension Fund was up 0.22% for the month and up 1.74% year-to-date. In the Merchandise and Commissions Fund account, there were payments to Matthews of $4,294.68 and Harris of $574.80. The account was up 0.2% for the month and up 1.1% year-to-date. Turning to page 2 with the account's details. In the permanent maintenance Greenwood account, the money market is currently yielding 3.92%, which is up from last month's yield of 3.12%. The mutual fund's overall yield is at 2.05%, which is up from last month's yield of 1.9%. And the overall yield in the account is at 2.67%, which is up from last month's yield of 2.56%. Turning to page 3, the permanent maintenance Swan Lake account, the mutual fund's overall yield is at 2.14%, which is up from last month's yield of 1.95%, and the overall yield in the account is at 2.98%, which is up from last month's yield of 2.48%. On page 4 in the Extension Fund, The mutual fund's overall yield is at 1.94%, which is up from last month's yield of 1.92%. And the overall yield in the account is at 2.83%, which is up from last month's yield of 2.53%. Finally, in the merchandise fund account, the mutual fund's overall yield is at 2.09%, which is up from last month's yield of 1.88%. And the overall yield in the account is at 3.31%, which is up from last month's yield of 2.7%.
Thank you.
I have a brief economic.
I was going to ask you if you would.
Sure. So the stock and bond markets are off to a good start so far in 2023. The S&P 500 is up 2% year to date, and the aggregate bond index is up over 3% so far. In our view, the Fed is nearing peak rates for this cycle, and we would expect the Fed to raise rates by 50 to 75 basis points in the first half of this year and then take a pause. The combination of interest rate hikes and slower growth has started to push down inflation, and central banks have signaled that rates are close to levels where policy is considered tight and rates will plateau. The odds of recession are still elevated, but there is optimism that any recession may be relatively short and shallow. The good news is that in the fixed income space, yields are higher across the board, and higher bond yields provide a cushion against future volatility. Fixed income should do well in 2023 based on the sell-off that has already taken place, coupled with the higher yields. We continue to see yields at 4% plus in the CD and Treasury markets. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much for that. The next, if you take a look at the documents that you received from Roxanne and review the profit and loss page of those financials. Just to point out, once again, as we would expect, Greenwood was down $12,728.86. Swan Lake was down $7,589.25, and the total, negative total is $20,318.11. When profit and loss was brought up and adjusted, the total loss, and that was for the year 2022, is $180,039.30. Are there any comments, questions? Hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve the financial reports?
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next is superintendent's reading of the bills.
AmeriGas, propane, $2,440.30. Barthel Enterprises for the half of the security system in the front door.
Thank you.
At Swan Lake, $1,664. There was also a door that Barthel repaired at Greenwood. That was $115. Brant's Swan Food, $91.80. Water, Coastal Valley, $10.45. Foundations from Harris Foundation, $954. Indiana Cemetery Association dues, $246.50. J. Thomas miscellaneous parts, $7.78. Cable and hardware miscellaneous repair parts, $89.04. Matthews bronze lettering, $4,873.23. Republic to dump the dumpster in Swan Lake, $109.62. Riggs, new snow blower, which we bought and then it quit snowing, $775. Tech-Centric Solutions, that is for the door chime and the screen on Mrs. DeRall's desk, $1,500. Poston, motor heater, $1,054.50, and NIPSCO, $1,193.70. December receipts, permanent maintenance receipts, $1,849.95, which correlates into Greenwood being $168, Swan Lake $1,681.95. Extension fund receipts, $3,538.25. Merchandise receipts, $3,261.75 for a total of $8,649.95, and those are the reading of the bills. Madam President.
Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make the motion that we pay the bills.
Okay, second.
Second.
Then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item is the superintendent's report.
Okay, we got one stuff here. Okay, I just read the charges for the new security door at Swan Lake. It was installed, it's in use. It also has from the doorbell ringer thing, it has a camera or like a TV screen on her desk where she can see who's coming up quite a ways in either angle from the parking lot or from the main entrance. Also keeps an eye on Highway 20, so that's working. That's been installed. The water heater and electric for the water heater has been installed and it's up and working. We have hot water, and the other one was removed. Everything's done, so that's taken care of. The water softener, which we had talked about, it will be, and I have the gentleman from the AIM Water Treatment Company out of LaPorte. They had the best quote for the water softener, so they will be in. They ordered the parts. Excuse me, they ordered the machine or whatever it is, and that will be installed sometime the week of January 23rd, which is next week. We had a mouse, so I called two pest control companies to come in and give us estimates. One will be in tomorrow between 11 and 1, and the other one will be in Monday between 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. They will do an estimate on the building itself and give us what they think would be a monthly, how many mice are going to get in, whatever. So that'll be coming in the next few days. Replacement signs at Greenwood. I have been dealing with a company called Holland. What have I got here? Holland Supply Company. They're out of Holland, Michigan. I could have swore I brought this. And they're going to see if they're because they make most of their stuff themselves. They're going to see if they can't fashion a couple of cemetery signs that would work for Greenwood. Here, there are only 10 signs missing at Greenwood. Oh, here we go. Here, if anyone's interested, this is what we sent to this company. I took pictures just to give them an idea of what we're talking about. And they, in fact, they just got back with us right before we came to the meeting, said they are working on it and they will get back with us.
Just in case.
The sections that are missing, not that it matters. Section 4, Section 7, Section 8, Section 9, Section 2, Section 0, section Q, F, C, B, and Calvary 1. Those are the sections that are missing the signs that we will be replacing. We may also, I don't know, but that's where we're at right now on that. Both garages have first aid kits, new up-to-date first aid kits, and ANSI approved. It's both kits are for 20 employees, so we have more than enough first aid material, bandages, tourniquets, and whatever the like is. And I have a question about, I'll ask you that, just, should it be brought up now, or should that be brought up in a separate meeting?
No, you can bring it up.
Okay. This past, I'm not sure when it was, but the mayor gave the employees the birthday off. The cemetery has always had their birthday off ever since I've been here in '82. And with another day added, that makes the city employees having 18 days. And the employees at cemeteries with their personal day at 16. I was asked to bring it up to see if we're going to compensate or if we're just going to leave it where it's at.
What's the difference?
2 days.
I understand that, the number, but why is there a difference?
Well, they get off things like Martin Luther King Day. We don't. They get off Veterans Day, Columbus Day.
So they get additional days off.
Right, and the reason that this goes way back is originally it was 6 days off. That's what we had when I came here in '82. And over the period of the years, we asked for different things. They got birthday also. And they asked for personal days to compensate for the days like Veterans Day that they never received. So, but now we're to the point where and I didn't mean to belittle you, but we're now at 2 days difference.
Okay.
Okay, this is what I suggest that we do with this, because we need a little bit more information. I'd like to see a list of what the city has and what your list is, so that we could decide at our next meeting. So I suggest that this gets put on the pending items list, and we address it at the next meeting. Does anybody want to comment on that?
I have a question. What have the employees asked for?
They were just curious about the day off, since they
haven't. Oh, okay.
They have not come up, and they questioned me about it. How come I said, well, we already have that, and of course they know how many days the city has and how many we have, and they were just questioning if there was going to be any kind of compensation.
Any other comments? Okay, Roxanne, would you put that on the pending items list for the next meeting? Okay, thank you.
And at the present time, that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, well, that was enough. Thank you for accomplishing all of that. We appreciate that. The next is old business and pending items list. And we're going to start out with our green burial gentleman. Why don't you introduce yourselves again? It's been a while since we saw you.
Sure. My name is Ted Personowski and my husband Warren Simmer. Thank you for inviting us back. We're happy to be here. And I think since your election of officers, I'm going to be the first person to thank Madam President for letting us be here today.
You're quite welcome.
When we presented to you back on June 9th, we presented some ideas about green burial, gave some literature about that, some handouts, but you had asked us some questions that we didn't have answers for. So we took a couple days off from work in mid-September, and we visited 4 of the cemeteries in Indiana that offer green burial options, and we'd like to report on that information to you today. And you also asked us about the funeral directors in Michigan City and what they were thinking. So we made an appointment with one of the directors where we have our plans already on file at Geis and Carlisle, Whitney Kane. And when she was talking to us, she would have been here if the meeting was last Thursday, which was the original day, I think, for this meeting. But she had a family medical situation that was pre-planned for today. She had to participate in that. And she was very enthusiastic about the idea. She said a couple of things that she does not believe it would take any business away from funeral directors. In fact, it might add to their business, especially because of the number of people who might want an alternative to burial options other than just cremation. And so she said they could even get more business if green burial was one of the options they offered. And she said very specifically because of certain religious communities in the area, especially the Islamic community, it would be a game changer for them in terms of burial procedures and ceremonies for them. So that's just some general information by follow-up from the homework you guys asked us to do. Before we go through the handout that we prepared for you today, just probably 3 things that seem to just be very consistent with the cemeteries that we visited. Number 1, other than the time taken to implement and plan something like this, that there really wasn't any major cost to the cemeteries to start. This is an option. Yes, Mark?
I didn't mean to interrupt, but could I have the names of the 4 cemeteries?
Yeah, we're going to give that. We're going to go through them all. Yeah, exactly. That planning and implementation takes time, but that there was minimal cost to that. Secondly, they said it was a moneymaker for every cemetery we talked to. And we have some information on that for you as well. And the third thing was that they found people who had left their communities and lived elsewhere in the country, once they found out their hometown had a green burial option, were coming back to their hometown for burial. So it ended up being a draw for people who have some certain levels of environmental consciousness, and it was a moneymaker across the board. So, those are just sort of some general things. We're going to make an odd request of you right now, and we have a handout. Whenever I go to a meeting and I get a handout, I start paging through it right away. But I'm going to ask you if you would just stay with us page by page, because we try to make it very succinct, very focused, and I think you would probably find more benefit just staying with us page by page, if you wouldn't mind doing that. So, Steve, for you and Davis.
I got
20 for you.
Teddy got 2.
Okay.
Here, let's take it, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I gave it to you.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give the first report, and I'll give the shortest. On this first page, we visited Springvale Cemetery in Lafayette, Indiana. And we're not trying to speak poorly of them, but those are our only 2 bullet points. It was natural looking to the point of untended, and it just looked sloppy. We didn't even take pictures of it to show you. We would have really been embarrassed to show you how they offered a green burial option. So I'll hand off to Larry for the second cemetery we visited.
Yes, this one was very impressive. In Crawfordsville, Indiana, it's the Oak Hill Cemetery. Excuse me. And what they did was they set aside a large area at the back of their cemetery, several acres, and they what they did was break down that large acreage into clusters of 16 graves. And so there were 2 rows of 8 in each cluster of 16, and then there's a double-sided column that would be like a shared monument stone for those 16 graves in that 16 section. Mm-hmm. And you'll see a picture of that in a minute. So there is 1 column for every 16 graves. And then what they did is, as demand grows, they just keep adding blocks of 16. They did follow all of the accreditation requirements of the Green Burial Council, but it took several years to achieve that designation. They have a number of fairly strict regulations that they'd like people to follow, guidelines, so that it can be certified as a green burial area. And then, of course, you then get to be marketed through the Green Burial Council, and you're on their website, which is another way of marketing a cemetery. We discovered that this was a very popular, successful way to go in Crawfordsville, and that, as Ted had previously said, that people are often returning back to where they originally came from to be buried there because of that option. We were told that it was an area that was easier to maintain. There's less mowing involved. and that it looks prairie-like a wildflower meadow in general. And that sometimes they would just weed whack like maybe once or twice a summer to keep the plant life under control. It is separated. I think one of the requirements of the Green Burial Council is that the green area be separated from the conventional area by some kind of a buffer zone. And you'll see a picture of that in a minute also. They do require a funeral director at every burial in the green burial area, and that the funeral directors do like it and offer all options for a green burial. When a grave is dug, there is there tends to be a mound left, and what they discovered was after a 2-year period, the mound settles back down as the body and the casket or whatever decomposes. So there is a mound for like a 2-year period, and then it levels itself out. At Crawfordsville, it was their board president who had learned about this green burial option and is the one who suggested that they bring it to their cemetery because he thought that this is the future. Because of the depth of the burial, there is no danger of animals digging up bodies. That has never been an issue with any of these cemeteries. And one of the requirements is that all the burial vessels be biodegradable, whether it be just a natural fabric shroud, a natural wicker basket of some sort, and then or a casket that's made without metal. So it'd be all wood dowel construction, unfinished, natural, biodegradable. So if you look to the next page then, this is Crawfordsville.
Larry, you didn't mean to skip about the cemetery earning the same amount. I mean, because that, of course, would be of interest to us.
Oh, yes. Right, and you'll see that in one of the last cemeteries we visited, that they actually charge more for a burial plot in the green cemetery section as opposed to the other one.
Okay.
So yes, it is a money earner for all of these cemeteries. So in the first image there is of Oak Hill and Crawfordsville, and you'll see on the far left is the conventional cemetery, and then they have this mowed green buffer zone of just like a lawn, and then on the right you'll see the natural meadow section, and it had recently been weed whacked, so that's why you don't see like tall plants with the wildflowers. So the next image then is like a closer up view of the green burial section. You'll see the monument there on the left that marks the section of 16 graves. And then on the right is a mound, and then in the middle is one from like 2 years prior that had already settled down to natural grade level. The next picture is a close-up of the monument itself. So there's space for 8 names with their birth and death dates on each side. So that's the column of 16 names for that section. And then on the next page, you'll see that they use conventional survey markers to designate where each of the cluster of 16 is. And then they do allow some people who want to have a marker. So if you want a marker on the actual grave, in addition to the name being on the column, they do allow that, but it just has to be a natural piece of stone and carved in some way, and it has to be flat. So that's what that one image on the left there shows. We saw several of those in several of the cemeteries that we visited.
Excuse me, and is that something that the cemetery provides? I mean,
Yeah.
you purchase it
the
on your own?
individual brings that, yes.
How many years have they been doing this?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Several years though. It's somewhat new to them too, because the area that we saw, I think only had like 2 blocks of the 16 designated, even though all the acreage was available for it. So they have a lot of room to expand. So I guess to answer your question, probably maybe less than 10 years.
Okay, how many are in use now, do you know, of those ones they've set aside?
At Crawfordsville, I think maybe 1 or 2 of the blocks of 16
Have been buried, but they have, I think they have 32 graves sold.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
And I think across the whole acreage, once it's ultimately sold, there'll be several hundred. I'm sure it's all platted out, but we did not see that.
Could you explain what the Green Burial Council is and how they interact with Indiana law, if you know that?
Well, maybe if we could walk through the next 2 cemeteries and then we'll come back to that.
Okay, because I have a number of questions.
Okay, great.
So the third cemetery was White Oak Cemetery in Bloomington. And to speak a little bit to what you were just asking, Virginia, we'll show you sort of the plat here as well, but they have one section designated with 32 graves and they're all sold out. They did not follow the Green Burial Council accreditation. And yet, the Green Burial Council still advertises them as a green burial site. So I think it's just the degree to which you want to be letter of the law for certain environmental kind of specificity. At White Oak, the only difference they've left between the graves, they leave a little bit of extra room between graves to compensate for shroud burials, because some of that just sort of loosens in a different way. And so they may, I think they did
4 feet by 10 feet.
4 feet by 10 feet.
Yeah.
They use normal grave closure techniques. The graves here are all lawn covered, just as all the other graves are. They are not separated from the rest of the cemetery. And often no vault is used. However, sometimes they use a vault that's turned upside down.
Without the lid.
Without the lid, and so that the body still decomposes right into the earth. But that's not a requirement for what they do. So if you turn to the next page, Section B, this is this part of White Oak Cemetery. Section B is their green section, and you can see it's laid out just like everything else. There are not roads here between section A, B, and C. That's just lawn. And they're, as I said, they're all sold out, and 4 by 10 plots.
And they're landlocked because Bloomington is obviously a larger community, and they have very limited area now. Their cemeteries are all pretty much sold out. So they were able to just take this one section and say we're going to make it green. But then they have nowhere to expand to make it, if there's more people who want it, they're going to have to look elsewhere.
And the next page is just to show you how much at White Oak, their green burial section looks like the entire rest of the cemetery. You could not look at this and see any difference. Regular grave markers are allowed, whatever people would like. So again, this is just a different approach, and yet, again, burial either in a shroud, a basket, or a completely biodegradable casket. That's what connects them to the green burial movement.
And we should maybe also at this point add, maybe Virginia, this would answer your question too, but in a green burial, the state does not require embalming of a body.
We understand.
So that would be a requirement to be buried in a green burial section, is the body cannot be embalmed, because you don't want to have those chemicals then percolating into the ground.
Certainly.
So the last cemetery that we visited, which was probably one of the nicest, is Washington Park North Cemetery in Indianapolis. And there we met a gentleman named Mike Patterson, who actually knew this area very well. He was a former vendor of cemetery materials or something.
And he told us the grave markers, the bronze plaques. They're grave markers, but that's what he told us. We didn't.
He used to be a vendor of those in this area, so he knew our area. So we had a really nice conversation with him. He was very helpful. He said that at Washington Park North, it's called Kessler Woods, they have both a prairie section and a wooded section. And the entire designation is called Kessler Woods. There's only natural stone markers, no bronze or granite. And the lots are larger, as we said, 4 by 10 feet. And then the prairie area is weed whacked 2 or 3 times a year, but there's no mowing. And then it is immediately adjacent to the existing cemetery. So the next page shows the layout. And this section, you can see there's several hundred, if not thousands, of grave sites there. And they basically did the same thing as Crawfordsville. There's an in-the-ground marker for every 16 blocks, every 16 graves. And you can see those laid out there. And it's looking at the left is where it's the wooded part, and then the prairie starts, and that's the rest of it. And it butts up right to the conventional area there over on the far right. If you look at the next photo I took, this is the line between the natural on the left and the groomed conventional cemetery on the right. The next page shows, again, how some people choose to put their own flat stone grade markers over the sites. And then you see what one of the survey markers looks like flat in the ground there at the center of each 16 blocks. The last page is, I took this off of a brochure from Washington Park, and you can see how I circled the section for Kessler Woods, and you can compare the prices that they're charging for wooded being the most expensive because it's the most difficult to dig graves when there's so many trees in an area. So that's why those cost more. And then the prairie, you can see, is more expensive than the conventional flat grave. So they are marketing it, and it is a moneymaker for them. So that's our tour of the 4 that we visited, and you're more than welcome to ask any questions that you have about this, and we'll see how we can answer them for you.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's a very comprehensive presentation, and it will be very helpful to us, I'm sure, in making our decision. But I do have some questions.
Sure.
Okay, and the question that I asked before was, what is this Green Burial Council?
Well, I think it's a national organization that is promoting green burial.
Okay. Are they affiliated with any particular locale or anything like that?
I don't know that. I don't know that for sure. I didn't go into research on that. But I think in the last handout that we gave you at the last meeting, I did give you the packet from them. So I think there would be more information about that from the last meeting.
Okay.
And I think, Virginia, I think they exist, those people think about this, if they want some guidance for what do you do if you're going to go like a Cadillac version, and what are you going to do if you want to do like a Chevy Impala version of what you do. So I think they provide guidance that way. And sometimes they get pretty strict in things, and some cemeteries want to just have a softer approach. Let's have this approach, let's offer it as an option, but it doesn't have to be super letter of the law.
Okay. How about if you give us contact information for that council, if you have it available?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That would really assist us. All right. Let's see. I think that's basically all I was asking. I have some notes here, but they don't pertain to you. It'll pertain to our decision and our discussion.
I have a question. Did you get into with any of these cemeteries if they encountered any opposition from the public? Did they kind of vet it before the particular cemeteries made their decisions? Or?
We didn't get the sense that they vetted it with members of the community, but we did sense that they vetted it with the local funeral directors.
Okay.
And that the funeral directors all found that this was, in some ways, another avenue for them to get business. It may not be the same as someone buying a copper casket, in terms of what they make on it, but still it's business that they might not otherwise get, especially because of the number of people going with cremation.
Right.
And the cost of that.
Yeah. And what brought it to mind when I saw this, which I think I get the idea of a prairie meadow and it's lovely, but the people over here would have objected if, I don't know. You know, some people like
Yeah.
everything manicured.
Yeah. But that last picture you just pointed to, Bonnie, that section, there was a little bit of
A buffer.
lawn, but we think that part was for expansion.
Oh,
And we just showed you the different, but there was a road separation from that
okay.
one group of graves from all the other graves.
okay, thank you.
Any board questions or comments?
Yes, I do have a question. What's the difference between natural stone and natural granite? So they eliminated.
They didn't want anything that was like cut square or polished. So if you could take like a flat piece of natural stone and engrave that and put it in there so it looked organic and unman-made.
So you can't mill it flat or in order to engrave it.
Correct. That's how they would prefer not
That
to do it.
increases the engraving costs dramatically.
And Davis, that's an example of how the cemetery in Bloomington didn't go that route. They follow what goes in the ground sort of for some green principles, but the grave markers or whatever people wanted, whatever the cemetery regulations are, whereas, in Indianapolis and in Crawfordsville, they got more fine-tuned about, what is and isn't allowed, so, yeah.
Well, you understand, and it's obvious you understand because you've given us so much information here that this is a complex issue.
Yes.
And so that's why we're going slowly into it so that we understand where we're going and what we want to achieve. Mark, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, have you talked to any,
I talked to the Indiana Cemetery Association Executive Director. His name is Casey Miller. And he is he's the general manager for the Catholic Diocese of Fort Wayne. I think it's 8 cemeteries that he manages. And I talked to him before Christmas, I believe. And they would not allow any of their cemeteries. In fact, he said that he's been on the association going way back, going back to the 90s, because I sat on the board of directors back in the mid-90s for the Indiana Cemetery Association, so I've known him a long time. He said they wouldn't do it. There's one cemetery, I think it's in Fort Wayne, I think it's Concordia, I think, that has it, and they're not sure about it. Now that they've got it, they're just not sure.
Did he say why?
Why that they're not sure?
No, why they aren't interested in it?
He said it's Catholic cemetery and they're just not interested. He never gave me an explanation of why. I've talked to I'm not going to mention names, I've talked to a local funeral director also, and when I mentioned it just in kind of passing, they were not interested in it. They did not want to get into it. And the last statement would be, you had said about the Islamic or Muslim, whatever it was, they already have plenty of ground at Greenwood that they use. And if they do and I don't know if the correct word would be like Jewish, you have Orthodox Jewish, if it would be an Orthodox Muslim, they do bring out the body, and it is in a shroud. And we don't put it in the ground, but we'll put a vault in, and we've always had to fill the vault up halfway with sand, and they put the body in, we fill up around it. So I don't know if there'd be any interest by the Islamic, I can make sure I get the right word here, temple, to do it. And this would only, I don't mean to steal anybody's done here, this would only be available at Swan Lake, because there is no room at all at Greenwood.
Right, for sure.
And they've already, like I say, they've probably got another 80 graves left at Greenwood to be used. So I don't know if that would be a selling point to that particular group.
Well, when we talked to the funeral director, she said she knows that takes place, and that sort of is a compromise solution, but she said there are people that would like not having to do that if it just was as simple as this.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and there are people.
I have a question.
Yes, Marianne?
What's the point of a green burial?
Well, there are some people that just because of their environmental education in their own lives, they don't like the idea of being in a cement box. They don't like the fact that the cement box doesn't, biodegrade. It just stays there for years, and so they like a very natural kind of conclusion to their life. And this allows.
You can't use that ground again for anything anyhow.
I don't understand. when a grave is sold, whether there's a box in the ground or whether it's just the body, it's never going to be used again for anything else anyway.
Okay, then it's just a matter of what people want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personal choice.
And you know, and some people live their whole lives like trying to eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle, avoid chemicals and, you know, what they eat, there's just a whole consciousness out there of people that want to live more in tune with nature and not be subjected to a chemical, very like inhuman, you know, conclusion to their life. And being in a box inside of a concrete vault is not appealing to a lot of people. So if we could just offer something different, why not offer an option? There's really nothing to lose on the part of the cemetery. It's just offering people an option. And I think what we've learned by visiting these other cemeteries is that there is a lot of interest in it. But people don't know that it exists, you know, because it's never offered, it's never talked about. But once people know it exists, then it's really quite popular. And some of these places are selling like crazy. So why wouldn't you do it? There's like nothing to lose.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Did any of the cemetery directors say that the family members wanted to be really involved in, you know, placing the body in the hole and
absolutely,
and how they handled that? Like, did they have limitations? Did they have rules, regulations of how deep the family could be involved in this?
They did, and that's why they all required a funeral director still had to be involved with every burial.
But that's optional.
I'm sorry?
The different religions have rules and regulations about what they can do and what they can't.
Yeah, true, but they want to make sure that a funeral director is still involved with every burial, who supervises whatever the religions say and all that, but they're not just letting families show up and, you know.
Well, what about placing the body in there? Does the cemetery workers need to be there to do that? Or is this something that the family wants to actually lower the body themselves?
I think, Renee, that probably goes to the details of how far you want to go with the green burial kind of latitude.
And the cemetery can set their own rules?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And maybe that's a negotiation you work out with the funeral director too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it sounds to me like we're not ready to make a decision tonight, but if the board wishes to make a decision on this, please indicate to me now. Do you want more time to study this?
I would like a little bit more time.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
One time.
All right, then we're going to put this on our pending items list.
Okay.
All right, and we'll revisit it. You know, we're going to have, say, 2 months. Okay, so March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Virginia, could I email that Green Burial Council information to you?
Absolutely.
And then you'll just distribute it to the others?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or you could,
I've got the website.
Do you want to email?
Is it on your
It's on the web.
Yes, I
That's
have
what
it.
we did before. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'll see that she gets it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I've got it right here too.
And this is just one other thing we'll leave for each of you. It's the Natural Burial Cemetery Guide in the Midwest. It shows you where these cemeteries exist in the Midwest now. And there are several in Indiana. It'd be neat to see Michigan City listed as well. And so we'll leave one of these for each of you.
Are these three cemeteries that you brought up, are they independent, or are they part of the Flanner Buchanan group?
As far as we know, only the Washington Park is part of Flanner Buchanan.
Thank you.
Thank you, very, very nice presentation.
Thank you.
We went to a lot of time and expense.
And this last handout I'm giving you is an aerial view of Swan Lake. And the second page is from it's the original sketch that the planners did of the layout of the cemetery. And you'll notice that in the upper corner, the upper triangle, that's actually already laid out and designed. So it's not like, I mean, that's one less thing that would have to be negotiated, is like, what is the design of this, green area going to look like? Well, all we have to do is follow the design that already exists.
That does not
as part of
exist.
the master plan.
That does not exist.
No, I know it doesn't.
Okay,
But the design
plans
does.
are not like that. The plans were drawn up originally, that's not how that is now.
Okay.
There's
but
no
my
roads
point
back
is-
there, there's nothing back there.
I know, I'm just saying that the original design for the area has already been done. It would be just a matter of implementing it. Or at least, working with a landscape designer or a surveyor to plot out a simple roadway that leads back to that area. If you want roads at all out back there.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. And Roxanne will get a hold of you and let you know the date of our meeting when we're going to bring it back up.
Okay.
I'm saying March, but, we may end up having to go a little further into the
Okay.
calendar.
And feel free to contact us anytime with any questions that arise. Any of you, feel free to contact us. We'll do our best to answer the question or put you in touch with somebody who might.
Is your information on these?
No, it is not, but it'll be in the email that Roxanne's going to
Okay.
forward to all of you.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening now.
Okay.
Remember, the biggest thing we keep for the green burial is the luncheon. There still will be a luncheon after the green burial.
I'm not worried about that. That was my first concern.
Thank you all.
Thanks, bye-bye. Okay, moving on now to new business, and the first thing is we need to assign everyone to new committees. What I suggest is you've got a blank copy here that Roxanne provided. Put your names on the committees that you want to serve on, and give it to Roxanne, or email your choices to Roxanne, and she'll get it to me, and then I'll take a look at it, and we'll revisit this at the next meeting. And the next item is, I've been asked to have a motion put before the board to make this our official meeting place going forward, at least in the near future. We can always change it back, but the city needs to know so that they know to reserve this. So do I have a motion?
So move.
I'll second it.
Okay, then call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Well, everyone, we've reached the final end of this meeting, but I'll give you one last opportunity for any comments that you want to make, okay? It doesn't have to be about the things that we've discussed now. You know what? I take that back. I forgot about our pending items list, okay?
So you mentioned most of it.
Most of it, but there's just one or two things that we need to talk about. There's the tree removal, and that's going to be on there till the spring of 2023, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we won't worry about that one. What I want to do is I want to set green burials for March. We'll leave the tree removal on. We're going to leave the new section signs on temporarily. Do you want to leave that on?
Probably.
Okay, so we'll revisit it at the next meeting, okay? February. Let's remove the water softener matter, because we've already gotten that taken care of through Mark. Let's remove the water heater matter, so we don't need that. And the last thing that we had on here was the temporary signs to be placed around the pond of Swan Lake.
I forgot all about those until last week, and I apologize, so I got some order, they should be in the next week or so.
Okay, we'll put.
No fishing, no swimming, no ice skating.
Okay, leave it on until February.
But
The
Gina,
last-
what about the furnace repair? Are you getting to that?
No, the furnace repair, we were misguided in what we were being told, okay? It is not the furnace, and Mark's gonna tell you that. It's not the furnace in the office that is the problem. That works fine. And they use propane for that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The one in the garage was the one that they had problems with, and it's been repaired.
It's been repaired, and there's,
Cool.
the mechanic told the owner, I called the owner and I said, do we need that furnace for the garage? And he goes, no, that a gentleman came out there and wanted to get a price for a new one. He said, but you don't really need one. We fixed it, and I said, well, then come back in the fall and we'll do that yearly thing, we'll be, okay, your furnace is fine.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so we'll remove that as well from the pending items list. The last thing is this pest control. I suggest that we authorize Mark to take the best bid that he receives and get that pest situation taken care of right away.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a motion.
I'll motion that we remove the pests.
I second that.
Immediately because of the birth rate.
They'll do damage too,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll tell you the story about that later. Okay, got a motion and a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, motion carries. Okay, we're all done. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second that.
Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you all.